Welcome to St. John's United Church on Sunday, May the 29th, 2022, here in Alliston. Today, we are celebrating the 60th anniversary of the United Church Women. After the service, please join us in Chilton Hall through these doors for fellowship time and cake. Please turn and greet everyone this morning with a wave and a blessing. More. Now I'll ask you to join me in the call to worship. We gather today to celebrate, to remember, to offer gratitude for 60 years of Christian witness, study, fellowship, and service. We give thanks for their leadership inside and outside the walls of the church and at all levels of the United Church Women. For the hospitality, pastoral care, and outreach ministries provided through receptions and events of all kinds. For the willingness to fill in when needed, to lead a church service, to organize an event, and to provide money for an item not on a budget line. For attending meetings, local, provincial, regional, and national, and bringing back new ideas, new study books, and new hymn suggestions. For supporting camping ministries, vacation Bible schools, Sunday school, World Day of Prayer, mission and service, food banks, and much more. We give thanks for their gifts and talents and sharing their treasures. Our first hymn this morning is number 660, How Firm a Foundation, and it was sung at the inaugural service in 1962. And we're going to do verses 1, 2, and 5. Please bow your heads in prayer. We gather this day in gratitude and thanksgiving for the thousands of women across Canada who gave over 60 years of Christian witness, study, fellowship, and service to their churches, their pastoral charges, communities of faith, their presbyterials, their regions, and to the national UCW. We give thanks to the families who supported them in their endeavors while eyeing the goodies on the counter that were going to the church. For their energy, vision, outreach, and pastoral care, we give thanks in gratitude. Amen. Please join me in the singing of the Lord's Prayer, number 960 in Voices United.
I can do this. The first reading is Micah, chapter 6, starting at verse 6. What shall I bring to the Lord, the God of heaven, when I come to worship him? Shall I bring him the best calves to burn as offerings to him? Will the Lord be pleased if I bring him thousands of sheep or endless streams of olive oil? Shall I offer him my firstborn child to pay for my sins? No, the Lord has told us what is good. What he requires of us is that to do what is just, to show constant love, to live in humble fellowship with our God. And our second reading is from 1 Corinthians chapter 12, starting at verse 12. One body with many parts. Christ is like a single body, which has many parts. It is still one body, even though it is made up of different parts. In the same way, all of us, whether Jews or Gentile, whether slaves or free, have been baptized into one body by the same Spirit, and we have all been given the one Spirit to drink. For the body itself is not made up of only one part, but of many parts. If the foot were to say, "Because I am not a hand, I don't belong to the body," that would not keep it from being a part of the body. And if the ear were to say, "Because I am not an eye, I don't belong to the body," that would not keep it from being part of the body. If the whole body were just an eye, how could it hear? And if it were only an ear, how could it smell? As it is, however, God put every different part in the body, just as he had wanted it to be. There would not be a body if it were only one part. As it is, there are many parts, but one body. So then, the eye cannot say to the hand, "I don't need you," nor can the head say to the feet, "Well, I don't need you." On the contrary, we cannot do without the other parts of the body. That seems to be weaker. And those parts that we think aren't worth very much are the ones which we treat with greater care, while the parts of the body which don't look very nice are treated with special modesty, which the more beautiful parts do not need. God himself has put the body together in such a way as to give greater honor to those parts that need it. And so there is no division in the body, but all its different parts have the same concern for one another. If one part of the body suffers, all the other parts suffer with it. If one part is praised, all the other parts share in its happiness. The word of the Lord.
The United Church Women, which we call the UCW, was formed by joining the Women's Missionary Society and the Women's Association in 1962. The Women's Missionary Society was concerned mostly with worldwide mission, whereas the Women's Association focused on work at home, and they also looked after the manse. These two groups joined together, creating the United Church Women for the total mission of the church. Here at St. John's, there were 155 members in 1962, with the following units. Their names are the Sadie Aberdeen Unit, the Mary Martha Unit, the Amicus Unit, Gertrude Fawcett Unit, Grace Unit, and the Sunrise Unit. The original idea was to change the units every 2 years with a new name and a chance to work with other women of the congregation. Over the years, there have been many different names. One of the new names was the Corrine Dunn Unit. The following verse was written about that unit. When we named our unit after Corrine, the church folk gave a shudder, as this honor was usually not bestowed unless the person was 6 feet under. So the next Sunday, the minister's wife was glad to see Corrine came into church as live as can be. Over the years, our numbers have dwindled as well as our units. We are down now to 2 units, the Grace Unit and the Ella Bateson Unit, with a total of 36 members. We may be small in numbers now, but we accomplish quite a bit. We have catered to many a banquet and funeral tea over the years, supported our local fund at the church, the Mission and Service Fund, My Sister's Place, Massey Center, Covenant House, Camp Simpresca, the Francis Sandy Ministry, Class, People in Transition, Ontario Early Years Center, the Mary McGill Center, St. John's Benevolent Fund, Habitat for Humanity, the 40th Anniversary Bursary Fund, Guatemala Teams, and the Stevenson Memorial Hospital, to name a few. United Church Women have been part of the national United Church Women programs over the year as well, such as the Cuban PED project, the Beads of Hope, that was 2002 to 2004, Sisters of the Spirit, 2004. A more recent national UCW project was the Child Well-Being Initiative, where among other work done in that area, poverty dolls were made and given out to politicians to raise the awareness of the challenges facing many children in this country. For the 50th anniversary, the national project was to raise $50,000 for the Morogoro Women's Training Center in Tanzania to teach the traditional birth attendants, the midwives. The actual amount raised was not $50,000, it was over $250,000. The current project this year is supporting the Women for Change in Zambia. This is to help fund the educational opportunities. This will end in July at the National United Church Women, or the UCW, meeting in Nova Scotia, when a new project will be named. St. John's has the unique distinction in that we have a few men who have been given life membership certificates and pins, one I see here today. They were written about in the May 1996 copy of The Observer. Every United Church Women's unit within their community of faith have stories to tell of their work, some funny, some serious, but all showing their commitment to the life and work of the congregation and to the world beyond their walls. And so, the purpose of the UCW, to unite the women of the congregation for the total mission of the church, and to provide a medium through which we express loyalty and devotion to Jesus Christ in Christian witness, study, fellowship, and service.
to help us at this end. And what I'll do is I'll turn around, hopefully if I remember, and I'll conduct you as well as the choir. So I'm going to ask everybody to stand because we sing much better when we're standing. Okay.
That was a workout. For you as well as us. So this morning, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Joyce McKinnon. Joyce and I go back to about 1961. Our husbands were police cadets together in the same cadet class. And not only were they in the same class, but they were very good friends. So I met Joyce socially on a few occasions, and I have at least one photo as proof, and it turns out Joyce has the copy of the same photo she sent me the other day. There's some incriminating evidence in that photo. Anyway, the boys in blue, they graduated and they went their separate ways. George to the West End and my husband Wayne to the East End. And we can all agree that life often gets in the way, and it's hard to keep in touch with people, what with careers and raising a family, to say nothing of the shift work. But life also has a way of reconnecting us to people too, and that's what's happened to Joyce and me. They lived in Palgrave, and we moved to Hockley Valley. And I became a member of the UCW at Mono Center United Church and started to go to Presbyterial meetings. And one day I came home from a meeting and I said to Wayne, I'm sure I saw Joyce McKinnon at a meeting today. So the next meeting I went to, I sought out Joyce, and sure enough, she was a UCW member from Palgrave. Joyce became president of Dufferin Peel Presbyterial in 2000, and then she was Toronto Conference president in 2006 and national president in 2008. She had her 70th birthday in South Korea when she was attending a PROK event there. And as national president, she also represented Canada in Mozambique. She also has another connection to St. John's. Mary Elizabeth taught Joyce's daughter, Kathy, in grade 1. And Joyce is sure Mary Elizabeth's fault that Kathy is now working at the Shakespeare Festival in Stratford. It's something about reciting a poem called Little Rabbit Foo-Foo when Mary Elizabeth and the class needed a break. Joyce has another daughter, Christine, and a granddaughter, Alicia. But I think I'd better stop talking and let Joyce tell you more about her UCW experiences. Welcome, Joyce. Yes, you can.
Thank you. Thank you for calling and asking me to come today. It's so long since I've had an opportunity to get up and speak and to get back into your sanctuary. Oh, I forgot how beautiful it was. And the organ. Did you see me wiping my eyes? You know, Palgrave is the most wonderful place to be a part of. They're my church family. And over the years, I've been kind of active, you might say. But back to my script, right? First of all, thank you. Thank you, Jackie, for having me. And filling in some blanks, because I was just doing the math yesterday and realizing it's 60 years ago that we met. But we're far too young to have met 60 years ago, right?
You were 10.
I was definitely just 10, very definitely. So this morning, thank you folks for allowing me to come and share with you. Mary Elizabeth, you sure covered all the territory of UCW. There's a great big hunk I don't have to share now. Thank you very much. But I am going to share about you. And it's taken out of context to where I have it. Mary Elizabeth, I just always, to start with, knew her as Mary. Mary taught at Palgrave School, where my girls went to school. Christine, the older daughter, and Kathy, the younger one. Kathy didn't talk until she was 2. And when she did start to talk, she had no R's. So along the way, at one point there used to be speech teachers came into the school and did therapy with them, and she started. Am I too close? Whoa.
Step back.
okay? But anyhow, Mary thought she'd help her, and she had her doing little rabbit foo-foo, running through the forest, and where it goes from there, I don't know. And that was it, bopping them on the head. She taught violence to my child in grade 1, bopping field mice on the head. Anyhow, she encouraged her enough that she went into the school public speaking contest doing the poetry. Whether she won or not, I don't know, but she did get up and do that. That child went on to do a Master of Fine Arts at York University, teach at Humber College, their theater arts, apprentice at the Stratford Festival, and is now assistant head of voice at the Stratford Festival. That is one part of the story. Thank you, Mary, for what you did for our family, for my daughter. And it was because of that that I got some of the journey that I did, because along the way, Kathy took the company that she had formed, Shakespeare Link Canada, to Mozambique, where some of our partners, Karen and Bill Butt, were working with the Christian Council of Mozambique. So back here, if I can get kind of on track. When I was thinking about today, thinking back, I had a flashback to when my father passed away almost 50 years ago. At the time, my parents were living in Newmarket. My dad had worked for Sterling Drugs, which had been moved its operation from Windsor to Aurora. Mom and Dad moved. I had only begun to teach, so I opted to stay in Windsor. We'd always been very active in the St. Paul's United Church in Windsor. Mom and Dad took what they did in Windsor and started doing much the same thing at Trinity United in Newmarket. But like I say, Dad passed away. We're standing at the funeral home in Newmarket, and who should walk in but our old family minister, the Reverend Charlie Lewis. First thing he said to me as he saw me, "Joyce, what are you doing for your church?" I kind of gulped, because at that point, I wasn't doing anything except trying to get my kids to Sunday school on Sunday, our 2 girls. We had 1 car. Like Jackie said, our boys were policemen. Policemen worked shifts. Well, when you work a shift, that takes in day shift, afternoons, and midnights. And if you're a detective, which George had become at that point, that means that during the day, if you're on afternoons or midnights, you're also in court during the day. 1 weekend, every 3 weeks off. Thank goodness for 2 neighbors that we carpooled. But if you can imagine, we piled 8 kids into a car each Sunday to take to our Sunday school. They were part of the group of 75 kids in Sunday school at Palgrave at that time. I'm sure you folks did much the same thing back in that period of time. At any rate, I eventually was able to start teaching Sunday school. The man who was our superintendent stepped down, I stepped up. Would I come and sing in the choir? Oh yes, I'd love to sing in the choir. I sang in the choir. Oh, the organist was having troubles with the organ. Would I please play the organ? And then when she was better, well, we better keep you playing hymns. So they invested in a piano, not a beautiful big grand piano like this one. However, it was still a lovely piano, and I played, whoever was the organist at the time or the pianist, I would play the opposite. However, all the time I was there was somebody watching over me from one of our stained glass windows. It's an angel. And that angel holds in her hand 2 great big spoons, and she has a set of keys hooked over her belt. That window was in memory of the woman who had been our treasurer, Eileen Lavery, of both our UCW and the church. That, to me, depicts the UCW. Now then, our scripture for this morning, of Micah 6, what does the Lord require of you? Those words are on that window. That watched over me from the time that window was installed. You stole my story that I was going to have here next, was meeting you. However, that's beside the point. No, well, it was at a party, a police party, but there you go. It wasn't until several years later, actually it was during that period of time, I knew there was a women's group going on. My mother had been in it in Windsor, the WA, and when they moved to Newmarket, she was in the WA in Newmarket. Right around the time that George and I were married, that group with the WMS amalgamated to become our United Church Women. They were all the old ladies, right? And there, yeah, you got it. All the old ladies, they were in that group. And we would watch as baking would go on the counter, and then it would go out in the door, and you'd get your fingers cracked if you tried to grab something of the baking. Because, no, that's going to the church. It was a bazaar, or it was catering to a funeral, or a bridal shower, or a bridal reception, even at that period of time. I grew up with that. I knew that. I knew this secret group was at Palgrave Church, too, because I saw them. I saw them in the choir, and I saw them talking afterwards, and I heard. But they met in the afternoon. I was teaching at the time. I then heard, once they changed into the evenings, that they were still meeting, and it was kind of like, I wonder if I could go, but I was too timid to ask. So I waited, and finally, in the 80s, it took living there for a few years, I can tell you, I was asked to come and join, because they had found out when they were preparing for turkey suppers, I could be there to help haul the turkey from the kitchen counter into the sink and wash it and then put it back on the counter so they could stuff it and stitch it up, because I wouldn't know how to stitch it up correctly, right? I was too young to know that. Then put it in the big roasting pan, brush it with margarine or something, wrap it, make sure the foil is snug. You've got to make sure the foil is snug on the turkey, and then set it aside. I could peel the potatoes and I could peel the turnips, and I would also carry the big pots. But they realized I was there and I was eager to help. Finally, I was asked to come and join them. And they finally had evening meetings so that I could. Like I say, I knew they went off to these gatherings. Sometimes they even stayed overnight, and I'd hear stories. I thought, what is that group? It was Presbyterial. And it wasn't until I retired in 1996 that I finally had an opportunity to go. That very first meeting that I got to go to, one of the members from our church, who was one of my mentors, Evelyn Pellett, was installed as the president of the old Dufferin Peel Presbyterial. She kind of moved me along. A little while later, she was only there 1 year as president because she had stepped up. A year later, we were sitting over at the church at Grand Valley, and my friend Betty Ward was kind of sitting beside me. She had been the president. All of a sudden, I realized she's sliding along the pew towards me, and she said, Joyce, we need a president. Yeah, okay. And thought nothing of it. A while later, she phoned me when I was home. Would I let my name stand as president of the Presbyterial? Okay, there's support. I'll do that. And so it began. I got to travel around the presbytery to see the common work being done by the women of the United Church, the fundraising they were doing, the dinners they were doing, the bazaars they were holding. Being a part of that Presbyterial, the president of the Presbyterial, I attended the executive meetings for the Toronto Conference, UCW. There I met Esther Lewis and presidents from the 9 Presbyterials at that point in time. We would get together, met Fern at that point, Fern Wardlaw, and a few other people that I'm kind of seen and half recognized. Masks make a difference, don't they? Because it's been a while since we saw each other. But I got to meet a lot of women, and there again, to travel around. When Esther said, would I let my name stand, I thought, well, there's all kinds of help. Betty will help me, Esther will help me, and our beautiful Dorothy Amos, who passed away just 2 weeks ago, she was there to tell me, Joyce, you can do this, Joyce, you can't do that. I knew the support was there. And so with that position, I was able to attend the national UCW meetings. Now then, I backstep. When I was conference president, by then, Kathy has gone to do Shakespeare on the beach, as she put it, in Killimani, Mozambique. Karen and Bill Butt. Karen had grown up in my church in Windsor. She and her husband, who had been a professor at Western, had decided they needed to work for the wider church. And so off they went, first of all to Angola and finally to the Christian Council of Mozambique, working in Killimani. Off Kathy went 1 year, took a group of friends, some students, some friends, and Bill found a group for them that he thought they might be able to identify with. This group were a group of African dancers. She was going to do Shakespeare with African dancers. Somehow she did. She created a piece of a few scenes from A Midsummer Night's Dream. HIV/AIDS was very active at the time, and they used that as an education. When she came home, she says, Mom, I've got to bring some of them here. She fundraised in the following year, the year of the HIV conference being held in Toronto. A group of 16 of them came to Canada. Only 15 of them came back because one little guy who happened to be in a picture that was wearing white pants, she had to have him stay here. That was Pulga Muchushono. He now dances with the Toronto Dance Theatre Company. He's married. He has a little guy who's going to be 4 in a few weeks. Pulga changed the life in our family. They still went back to Mozambique a couple of more times. Joyce, you need to go and see what's going on. So I went one summer while they were over there to see the work that was being done by the Christian Council of Mozambique with Karen Butt. Karen ran a program, an after-school program for girls, helping them to stay in school, to teach them life skills. For the mothers, they ran craft projects, encouraged them to grow larger gardens, all of which could be sold in their gardens. I needed to go back with her to see the groups that were happening back into the mountains. And so after a 4-hour drive in a pickup truck, we went back into the mountains of Mozambique. Have you ever thought of walking for 2 hours to hear a speaker? At that gathering that I went to, there were a few women that had come from further into the mountains because they wanted to meet this person who had come from Canada, to thank that person for sending Karen and Bill Butt to them, for raising money that was helping them. I was so utterly amazed. We can't get women sometimes to come across the street to hear a speaker, but these women were so eager to come and meet this person. I had no idea what they were saying, although Karen was wonderful at translating everything. I came home from there, and that's when I stepped up to think about the national. What did you tell me? When does 2008, I think it was. Doesn't matter. We got word from the Presbyterian Church of the Republic of Korea, known as the PROK Church, and I know that you are a benefit of that church. Word had come that their Women's Association was celebrating 80th anniversary. Would we please send a representative? Sandra Dunning, who is then the president, and I was president-elect, were sent by the church to celebrate, to go to Seoul, Korea, and celebrate 80 years of work. I'd seen the work we were doing here, but to see the work those women did, they took it one step further. Every single Wednesday, a group of women, WA women, would go and get started off a bus apparently, but it was down to just a small van. They brought 8 little ladies and sat them on a chair on the road. These ladies had yellow vests. They were sitting across the road from the Japanese consulate. These women were known as comfort women. They had been taken as teenagers from their homes to serve the Japanese soldiers during the war. They were now down to just 8 left. When the war was over, they could not go back to their homes because they had been shamed. The Women's Association of the PROK Church had been taking care of them since then. The women who were there had bullhorns, sang songs, sang hymns, and screamed about words and apology. Sandra and I stood there in totally stunned that these women would have the courage to do what they were doing. And everybody stopped, they did it. It's done every week, rain or shine, snow, it didn't matter. That was part of their ministry, social justice for those women. As well, they did as we do. They take care of the mothers, the grandmothers, the children. After-school programs to keep their kids in school, to tutor them. Seniors, have you ever heard of kimchi? Anybody heard of kimchi? Mm-hmm. Okay, so when I say kimchi, how does your mouth feel? Kind of hot? Kimchi is cabbage which has been fermented with red peppers, hot red peppers. Needless to say, it's kind of hot to eat. When we were on the plane heading over to Seoul, it was served. I took one bite and I had to get it out of my mouth as quickly as I could. It burnt so much. They make kimchi for their seniors to help keep them warm during the winter. I was utterly amazed. Come back here. What do? We have wonderful baking. Your kitchen here. Oh, some of the baking that comes out of the kitchen here. I don't have to tell you folks. One of the things I heard in my travels, cabbage rolls and pierogies from some of our Northern Ontario and Prairie units are doing that. But I haven't heard of anybody doing kimchi yet. There's a thought, keep you warm during the winter. However, I know I went right off, totally off, and you used the scripture that I was going to add as an extra. That's wonderful. I've had a privilege to see a lot in the travels. I've been blessed. That happened, first of all, just about 1998, my husband passed away. Any of you who have lost your spouse know how devastated that can be. Devastating, especially when they're so young still. He was only 58. We'd only just begun retirement. And I can remember crying out to God on more than one occasion, God, please help me, what am I going to do? My mother taught me as a child that God always answers your prayers. He might answer with a yes. He might say flat out no. Or he might say, we'll see what we can do about it. The answer to my prayers was Betty sliding across the pew to me to say, Joyce, would you let your name stand as the president of the Presbyterial? A whole new world opened up to me. I never would have done any of that had George been alive. I would have continued riding around on the back of his Goldwing motorcycle, having the time of our lives. I had a different kind of my life. When I look back over, and I know there's a common thread, there was also another common thing that I was hearing. It was the age of our UCWs. We think, how can we keep doing this? I'm getting tired. I can't keep doing all this. There comes a time that, yes, you can't do it anymore, but you're not done as a UCW. Remember the other part of our promise, that we get together. We provide worship, we provide comfort. There's still work to be done with visiting. Take a look around. Are there women that are around you in your community that maybe really would like to come and join you, but they're too timid to ask? Ask them. If they say no, they say no, but at least ask them. Let them know that you feel they belong. There's a hymn called We Have This Ministry. I didn't mention it. I thought about that afterwards. We still have a ministry. Before I close, I want to say, family members of the UCW, gentlemen, kids, thank you. Thank you for sharing the women so that they can come and do the work of the church. They can take the work further out. My family, my girls, I know they shake their heads more times than not. Mom, where are you off to now? As they'd watch the backhand. My granddaughter doing the same thing now. Thank you to all of you for your mission, for being members of the United Church Women, for supporting the United Church Women, for being. But remember, what does the Lord require of you? Are you supposed to be doing something in particular right now? Thank you. Amen. Oh, I want to put this on. Oh, go ahead. One of my trips, like I say, was to go to Seoul, Korea. They presented us with stoles. As we got off the plane, we were handed these and we wore them around for the 10 days that we were in Seoul, Korea. I thought we were celebrating 85 years. I found out it was 80. Only 80 years, but that was also 20 years ago. Thank you, folks, for having me today. Thank you, Mary, because if it hadn't been for you and Kathy, I may never have got to Mozambique, and that started the ball rolling. Amen. Thank you. God bless. All right.
Thank you, Joyce, for sharing all that with us. And I have to tell you that in Shilton Hall, there are some fabulous picture boards that Mary Elizabeth has done over the time. St. John's hosted UCW Presbyterials here for years. There are some photos. There's a book that is, I think, Mary Elizabeth, you put together the book. It's a binder. It goes right back to the beginning of UCW here at St. John's. Absolutely wonderful. So if you get a chance to, please stay and have a look. They're fabulous. Okay, so I'm going to do the invitation to the offering. We come with gifts of the mind and the spirit. We come with tangible gifts that can be put to work in our communities of faith to live their mission, and our missions and service gifts to go to ministries across Canada and around the world, providing hope to many. Let us now receive those gifts. Amen. Thank you, Ed. Would you bow our head in prayer, please, and join me? We give thanks for these offering gifts. We have set these gifts free to do their work in the community and around the world. Amen. And this is our closing prayer. Dear Lord, be with us as we share our UCW memories, as we remember the hope we saw in the eyes and laughter of the ladies who taught us who you are and what we can accomplish with your help. We celebrate the 60 years gone by, the 60 years of toil and prayer, of fun and fellowship, all with the hope that we would be helping to provide a pathway of spiritual growth, of renewal and faith in ourselves, our UCW sisters, our families, and our communities of faith in the world. Bless everyone gathered here today, and bless the work that continues in your name. In hope, amen. Our closing hymn is it's words written by Betty Turcott for the 50th anniversary of UCW, and it's to the tune of the Church's One Foundation. Now let us join in singing, Go Now in Peace.